So, hello and good morning. Oh, good morning. This is so ingrained in me when it comes to check-ins. Hello, guys. Welcome to the Improved on Season podcast. It is me, Pascal Steve, and on the other end, it is Steve, still sitting in his, dungeon, because it's so pitch black and dark in your room. Are you into kind of bondage and all that kind of stuff, Steve? Steve doesn't even know what bondage is based on his facial expression.
I might be. I've never tried it, so I don't know.
I never tried it as well, but I can't really see that. I find it cool, to be honest.
Currently not.
Getting spanked and all that kind of stuff. It's not for me.
We're into we legitimately cause ourselves pain almost every day in the gym. Like we're damaging muscles and ripping them apart. So
I don't like to get beaten though. And that, I'm more like the
you can
cuddling.
Be the domineering.
Yeah, no, the cuddler. Like I don't like. I like this more. I need some. Yeah,
that sounds preferable.
Yeah,
but some people.
Sorry.
What was I watching? Tattoo Fixes or something. I know I'm talking about tattoos again. It's like broken record. But she was like, yeah, when I get a tattoo, it's like having an orgasm. She was like, I've orgasmed when I've had a tattoo. And I'm just like...
I mean, some people are very much into this, right? And they experience quite a lot of pleasure from pain. It's crazy because there are some fetishists out there that are, holy cow, like putting some kind of hooks through your skin and leaving you hanging down the seating. Yeah, some people do this and they get sexual pleasure from this.
Oh, dear. I saw a film once. It was called, what was it called? Hostel. They were doing something like that.
Oh, yeah, it's ages ago, isn't it?
Yeah, that was fucked up.
Yeah.
So fucked up. Oh, dear.
Yeah, this escalated quickly.
It did. I'm in the dungeon. You can't see what's in the background. It could be a lot of hooks and there's a bit of blood on the floor. Who knows what that's from?
Maybe that's why you didn't really lighten the left corner. On your end, it's the right corner.
I can actually perform some magic. Can I? No. Oh, it did work.
Yeah, a little bit.
I can, if I move this light a little bit.
Anyway, here we are. Another week in the books. Another week in your mesocycle, my mesocycle. How are things on your end, Steve?
So I actually made some adjustments. So this will actually be interesting content for people because I've just started week 1 and I was talking to Pascal via WhatsApp and kind of just figuring through my split at the moment. And I don't know why, but I do know why. I came to this conclusion thinking that muscle groups were recovering on time and therefore I was increasing the training frequency for them. So that was for chest and back. So for the longest time, I ran a 3 time per week back frequency, which I might go back to. I'm not like, it just seems to be the longest time I've been running that because I don't know about you, Pascal, but my back it can take a lot of beating and it recovers pretty quickly. Yours is quite different. In fact,
yeah,
I know it
is.
So
much.
So it's a good it's good to kind of compare. And then I tended to find 2 times a week for my chest work really well, but then it started recovering quite quickly. So I was like, I'll drop in a 3rd. And then I just felt a little bit overwhelmed with all the work that I was having to do in sessions. And I felt unable to really kind of make those sessions as productive for the single muscle groups as I would like. So that upper body session, I couldn't nail the chest as much as I was like, because I had back in that session as well. And even though things like arms were on the back burner, I delts on the front burner. It just was getting a little bit overwhelming in terms of like the amount of work I had to do. And I felt like the quality was slightly down and I couldn't quite get the job done for the individual muscle group. So I basically rearranged my volume, reduced it a tad for chest and back, actually mostly just for chest, just a little bit. And I moved towards a push, legs, pull split. Whereas before it was, I had 3 upper body sessions. So I was hitting the back and chest 3 times a week. And so far, I've enjoyed it. I have only ran half the week so far. So leg sessions, I freaking love legs at the moment. It's just something they're just, when you're just connecting with your leg training super well, and for me, it's quads. Like it just feels really great. Hamstrings, I'm not enjoying a whole lot. Like it's just, for me, it's frustrating that I haven't got a seated leg curl because I was really getting on with a seated leg curl when I had one. When I was using it last in the gym. And so I had the lying leg curl. And I actually dropped in, kind of a little bit inspired by your session as I saw it. you have a hip hinge right at the end of your session. You have the V squat hip hinge, I think. And so I was like, you know what? I considered putting it after my leg curls at the start of the session, because I do leg curls first because my quads are so disrupted and pumped. If I do them afterwards, it is too painful to lie down on the pad that it impacts my performance. But I was like, right, I'm just going to do my normal session, leg curls. Then I did my Smith squats, my Myomatch belt squats. And then I actually went upstairs and tried their back extension again, which I think I've shown you. It doesn't have like a support for behind your knee legs. And actually it was okay. I think someone had moved it so that the foot pad was giving me enough support that my feet were just grippy enough, and it was fine. And I was lying on it, and my quads weren't to the point where it was too uncomfortable to be able to just lie on it. And I did one set of paused back extensions at the end of the session. I was like, oh, actually, that might just get me what I wanted from leg curls in terms of that extra stretch under load. And if I do it at the end of the session, it's not as much impact. Like I don't want to do it at the start, because then I really want quads to grow. They're like my primary thing. So you think do them as early as possible. So that's what I was trying to do. I was like, if I do back extensions after leg curls, like that's a lot of already work before I get into my quad work. And I'm probably not just pre-fatiguing hamstrings for quad work. I'm not fussed about it. It's not impacting those squat patterns. But if I pre-fatigue and I do back extensions, my glutes are getting quite a lot of work. I don't want my glutes, like I just don't care about them growing right now. They can grow, but I want my quads to grow. So that was quite a nice realization that I can add a sprinkling extra work within those sessions. And then I did pull today, and it was good. I was underwhelmed with the machine row that I did. And I'm like, in theory, it should work well, and it looks decent on footage. In practice, it didn't feel amazing. And I was like, it might just be that you haven't used it for long enough. So I'm going to give it a bit of due diligence, because I've been using the Strive row, which people might have seen in my vlogs. And you probably have seen the orange row where it's chest supported for a long time. And actually, it didn't improve meso to meso last mesocycle. So I was just like, I've been using that ever since I've been in this gym, haven't rotated it out. It's probably time I need to like just chill it for a little bit. So I went to the Prime Extreme row, which is like plate loaded, and you can kind of manipulate where it's hardest. So, which is quite cool, similar to the Strive, but a little bit different. And so I'm trying that one out, but it just felt a little bit underwhelming, but we'll have to see. It might improve. It did feel better after 2 sets, and I'd only ever like done warm-up sets on it. So yeah, we'll just have to see how that goes. But yeah, that's how training's going so far. I'm basically halfway through week 1 in my new split in mesocycle. And Mike Chalice was actually just saying in his last check-in, because Das Gym is coming up, he's like, we need to like have a chat. I don't know how we're going to train when we're out there. I don't know what your split is. I will literally have I think my split will go push legs pull when we're there, which is great because I get to train everything. Yeah. I don't know what yours is looking like when you're there.
Same. And I will kind of change things a little bit around, because probably this is the time where I'm supposed to do pulls off the floor, and I don't want to then do or have a primary hamstring workout. So probably I'm then still going to exchange that with a quad dominant workout, because they just have such lovely quad machines there. So yeah.
I will have the same. I will be in the position where I should do a hamstring dominant workout, but maybe I'll do similar to you and just like, fuck it, just gonna. If for you, it's less of a concern because you're going into that safety net that is the deload right afterwards. Whereas I'm like within the mesocycle, and I want to line up my deload with my tattoo that I've booked in, so I don't want to fuck around too much. But so will you be training push the first day when we're there on Thursday?
Normally, I always start with a pull.
Okay.
So, I mean, the thing is, it's just for 3 workouts, and then it's like I said, afterwards, it's kind of a deload. So I will probably just do whatever we fancy.
Okay.
I just switch things around, and then even if I'm, I don't know, not feeling 100%, I think it's all right, because it's the last 3 sessions of my mesocycle.
Yeah.
So I can just push beyond the edge.
I know Mike we've just changed his mesocycle split because he was desperate to try 3 times per week legs. Okay. So he's doing upper, lower, upper, lower, upper, lower. So he will have lower, upper, lower when we're out there. So that's going to be spicy. But as long as we're all kind of close and in the environment, I was just thinking it would be great to vlog that somehow, but
I thought so as well, but I can't be bothered taking my camera with me because it's something that I always do with my family. I'm always the person with the camera and then taking a lot of pictures, and I'm kind of the ghost in the background.
Yeah.
We have those kind of photo albums where we are just kind of capturing each and every single year, and I'm hardly in it, right? You would always assume that is always some kind of ghost that takes pictures of the two kids and Katie. And I can't really be bothered then being distracted by just vlogging and recording things. I want to be there and have a good time with you guys and training, meeting people and all that kind of stuff, you know. I don't, so it is kind of work, but at the same time, I want this to be not just like solely like, okay, we have to record now content and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's a holiday for us. Like, we're just getting together and training and chilling out. Like, I will have a few clients who are competing around that time, so I think I have to do a little bit there. But I'll take some time off client check-ins around that period of time. I don't know if that you're doing the same or
probably I'm going to take a week off afterwards because it's just going to be a lot. I will also then have to pick up Katie and the kids because they are on kind of it's not a cruise, but kind of it's a. I think I even said it to you or tried to explain it at some point, but they are kind of away in order to relax and recover. Like, it's something that is even paid by the insurance as well.
Yeah. No, never heard of it.
Yeah. And maybe it's just a German thing even. But yeah, I have to pick them then up because they were supposed to be away for 3 weeks. But Katie and I, we've talked about it, and we may be a little bit weird when it comes to this because we are not the type of parents who enjoy being away from another. Because I have friends, and Katie has as well, that there are some people who are always kind of planning things to do on their own away from the family. And Katie and I, we both are the type of people who very much want to spend as much time as possible with the family. And if they are then away for like 3 weeks, and we had a little bit of a discussion around this, basically a debate, where it was just like, I find it a little bit unfair if you guys are now away for 3 weeks. And I know how egoistic it sounds. And once again, we just had a debate about this, and we decided or came together, had a compromise that I'm then going to pick them up once I'm coming back home from Vienna. I will then immediately drive up and pick them up. So, yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, I don't know. It just sounds, I can't comment because I'm not in that situation, but I would have thought, you'd hope most like marriages and then family, they want to be together, but I can see why you might want some time apart to like chill, maybe if it's a little bit much, and people are different, right? But that sounds healthy.
Absolutely. But once again, and I'm not blaming anyone for their decisions and the way that they look at their relationship or what it is that, or how much time they are spending with their family. But for me personally, I've never been away from my family more than 4 days. That was always kind of when I was over in London or so. And that was already kind of, I was very busy. So wasn't really occupied with the thoughts of then missing them. And still, I was very much looking forward to getting back, right? And I know people who take kind of a holiday, like I need a week for myself. So I'm traveling away without my family. And the kids are super small. And it's just not me. And it's not Katie as well. So after then the trip, I will take a holiday. Without check-ins and also then without kind of massive amounts of training, just to finally take the time again to calm down, give myself a little bit of a rest when it comes to this, and then go again. And yeah, so Steve, I've made a lot of now notes based on the things that you brought up. Shall we go through them? Because I think it's maybe interesting to cover those kind of things, because you brought up a lot of valuable things, and I would like to dig a little bit deeper into those.
I didn't know you were making notes. Yeah, we can definitely do
that. A proper podcast host. So first and foremost, you said that you've been quite overwhelmed by the amount of exercises that you needed to do. Can you elaborate a little bit more so? How many exercises did you do? What was the rationale behind it? Why did you do it in the first place and all that kind of stuff?
So yeah, I was finding that my chest and back were recovering like very quickly, way before they were due to be trained again if I was leaving it as long as for a push-pull leg split at the time. So I decided, right, I think it might be worthwhile increasing the training frequency. But then what I found is, because I had at least 2 exercises per chest and back, it was generally 2 each. I found that I didn't want to do too much for either, because I'd sacrifice the quality of one of the others. So I'm kind of getting to that scenario where for the session as a whole, by trying to do chest and back in there to their kind of fullest maybe, or even just prioritizing one and getting a bit of a stimulus for the other, like one was needlessly getting sacrificed, and it was just hard to maintain that for. And I've been running a similar split to that since like my entire contest prep and ever since my off season. So I think I was also psychologically getting burnt out, but I found this, the easiest way I can describe this is, it was more obvious for legs. When I had those at 3 times per week frequency, I was always kind of concerned not to push legs too much on any single session, because I was worried they wouldn't be recovered in time for the next session. And that was always like, well, why? Why have you got that higher training frequency then, if you're worried every time they're not going to be recovered in time and you're holding yourself back? And that wasn't quite the case for this, because I just couldn't push my chest or back to the point where they would be under recovered. So it's just kind of like I was getting a frequent stimulus for them, but maybe not quite as good of a stimulus as if I was just focusing on one. So now, like that first chest session, I'm like, I could actually just be like, yeah, I can put all my efforts into chest, make sure I'm getting that stimulus that I want from that session, not just leave it at like 4 sets. I can get it up to 6 where I'm really feeling it, and then kind of move forward from there. Whereas before I was like, once I've done 4 sets of chest, 4 sets of back, that's already quite a lot of work. Like, and I was quite tired just from doing that. And I'm like, man, I really could have done with an extra couple of sets on each. But then that's starting to get into like 20 sets just from chest and back. Then I want to do delts. And I was plugging in like abs, calves on that day, because I was like, I want to be as fresh as I can for legs. And I think this is that kind of like, I'd say this is that advanced bodybuilder issue where it's like, you want to grow everything, but you also probably can't grow everything at its most. So you have to either be content with growing everything very slowly anyway, but particularly slowly, or prioritize a little bit more. So yeah, I just kind of have pulled back a little bit, and I've changed the split to be like this. And I think also this is something I was reflecting upon, is there's so many ways to skin a cat in that. Like with Mike, I explained this to him because I was like, all right, I kind of said to him, I don't think we need to do 3 times per week legs, because at the moment your training isn't like, your training volumes aren't demanding it. And I think you're progressing really well with the current split. But I was like, there's no actual problem with us doing the same amount of volume and splitting it over 3 sessions and seeing how you do with that. It might end up being better as long as you're making sure you're not changing things too dramatically and you're abiding by the principles. You can play around with like training frequencies a little bit. You can play around with like exercise order a little bit. Like I put my, I've actually just put calves earlier in my sessions now rather than putting them later, just to kind of see with things. And if anything, it might not change anything. And it might just be a psychological thing where it's just like, man, this is just nice because it's a change for me. So yeah, I don't know if I answered your question, but that's kind of where I'm coming from.
Absolutely. Also on this note, so for me personally, it's not that I realized it. It is something that I was doing intentionally, that I upped kind of the amount of workload for my arms and also the delts. Something that we've discussed like ages ago, because I wanted to actually then put a lot of emphasis on growing those body parts. But I'm also at the point where it's kind of a little bit overwhelming as well. The magnitude of workload, the amount of exercises that you're doing. So if you're then having a high frequency on biceps, on abs, on delts, it's not the same as higher frequency on something like back or chest, because these are body parts that can recover even quicker than those other body parts. So if you then decide to have if it's not just a decision, but if it turns out that these are your weak body parts and you increase the frequency on those, then you need to probably increase all of them at the same time. And if you then put them nearly in each and every single workout, it's just getting to the point where you're just doing a lot of work at the same time, right? And then I was asking myself the question, okay, what is the most important thing? It's definitely not doing bicep curls. Bicep curls give you a good stimulus, of course, but we also know, and this is something that we've brought up in the past as well several times, we also know that the bicep is getting a lot of love and attention from pulling movements. So why not just like have a more simplistic and holistic approach when it comes to the programming? Focus a lot on then still pulling movements and also pressing movement when it comes to the upper body. Get stronger and progress on those, and not necessarily increase so much volume on those body parts, because if you're getting stronger in a medium to high repetition range on those other movements, and they are the bread and butter, then probably it will directly carry over and not leave you overwhelmed by the sheer amount of exercises and movements that you have to do, which also then often results in other connective tissue issues due to higher frequency. I've noticed that just like with my right shoulder, that there's, when it comes to pressing, right now I have a little bit of issues on the right shoulder with pressing, and I would very much assume that it isn't due to pressing, that it's mostly due to then bicep curls and also then delt work.
Do you not see the progress you would like? Are you sick of writing your own programs? Or perhaps you need some accountability in order to stick with a plan? Then it's time to start working with us. We at Revive Stronger offer a truly personalized coaching service. You'll get more than just an email with some macros or random cookie cutter program. With Revive Stronger, you will be the center of our attention. You will receive your own fully individualized training protocol alongside a customized nutritional strategy. We created the coaching around your needs, wants, personal preferences, and your own unique lifestyle. Every single week, we delve into your program in order to make appropriate adjustments so that we get the most out of your time and the best possible outcome. We help both female and male athletes to seriously change their body composition by adding more muscle mass and decreasing fat tissue. No matter if you're a competitive bodybuilder or just want to look better, if you need help with your progress and taking your physique to the next level, our coaching is for you. It's time to make a change. Sign up today and let's revive stronger.
I have felt, I think I generally feel it on one side, but it's definitely shoulders from bicep curling. Sometimes it can just feel kind of, I don't even know what the description is of it, but it can just feel uncomfortable sometimes with some movements, and then you can modify it. But I think I've been fortunate because ever since I've been running 4 times a week delts for ages, and that isn't something I feel like I want to change because one, it's a huge priority for me, and I'm actually experimenting. I've been slowly graduating my delt volume a little bit higher because I find I get a pretty good stimulus from like a couple of sets. But I was like, I never quite get that like gnarly pumping, like huge sensation feeling in my side delts. They never get sore, but I also don't generally ever push it to the point where I see diminishing returns in terms of that stimulus either. I just kind of maybe plateau, and I'm just like, this mesocycle I've just decided, right, delts are still a huge priority. I'm putting them first, and I'm going to like experiment pushing volume higher probably than I've ever pushed it for those, just to see. And then maybe that's when I'll start experiencing some of the things you're experiencing with kind of the shoulder issues and things like this. But yeah, there's always like a opportunity cost with all of these things. Like you try and push one thing, and that's where periodization comes in. You need to modify things, and the psychology, physiology, everything.
I mean, in the end,
kind of that's the art of it, I guess.
Yeah. So for me personally, right now, I don't have an issue in actually then using machines and all, because I'm one of the first people, if not the first person, showing up at the gym early in the morning, and that's why everything is available to me. So it's not a big deal for me to then go from one tricep exercise to the other tricep exercise and have a little bit more variation per session instead of just like having, let's say, four exercises. So let's say 2 for the chest, 1 for the tricep, 1 for the delts, and that's it. I think a very simplistic approach is often the better way because it's easier to track, easier than to also stick to something and really give it your concentrated effort. And also it allows you to then have like other tools available then in the future. If you're using all of the exercises, what is it that you can fall back to when one is feeling stale or gives you a little bit of aches, pains, and all that kind of stuff? But I was just thinking, so for example, one of my athletes brought up a very good question of like, okay, what do you think, Pascal, about instead of just doing something like isolated rear delt work, which is never really isolated, but focused work for the rear delts, instead of doing something like reverse pack deck or reverse cable flies, why aren't we just doing a little bit more pulling movements that have a little bit more of an emphasis on the rear delts? And I was just like, man, this is a fucking good take. And I couldn't really say anything against that. And because of that, I was now incorporating a little bit more pulling movement that is then a little bit of a different variation. And what I mean is, if I'm now sitting on a lat pull down, for example, and the first 2 sets are more so mid-back targeted,
Yep.
Then I added just another 2 sets with the same kind of handle, for example, maybe a little bit of wider grip, so that my elbows are a little bit more flared, so that I put a little bit more emphasis on the rear delts, but still my back is getting a lot of attention as well, instead of then going over to doing something like a reverse pec deck, which is, in my opinion, even harder than to really, I don't know, hit the rear delts. Of course, you can do this, but I think from a positioning perspective, just like pulling movements made much more sense. And I've never seen, and this also then applies to something like forearm work, I've never seen someone who has a fucking huge, humongous back or so with fucking tiny forearms. Right? And that's kind of the same thought process that I have there as well. If I focus primarily more so on really heavier pulls, then probably my rear delts will get all of the love and attention that they need, instead of then adding, I wouldn't necessarily call it fluff work, but to some extent it is.
Yeah, I can agree, because I think, especially for something like the rear delts, they get so well hit in so many, like, as long as you're doing like full range of motion pulling, they get so well hit that it's like, do you need to isolate that? And it's like, I know you've never really, I don't think you've ever programmed yourself forearm work, or maybe a little bit of trap work, but they're things old me, like I was programming it all. I was like forearms, traps, fucking everything. But it's like, Steve, if you have the argument that your adductors don't need extra isolation work because they get hit in the big compound lifts, and you don't have small adductors and they like respond really well, do you have small forearms? Do you have small traps? No, neither of those are true. And do they get hit really well with your compound lifts? Yes, they do. So if you're just adding them because you feel like it's a more is better mentality. It's like, if I can do it, I will do it. But there's a psychological fatigue. And as you know, I injured my wrist for the longest time. It's actually only just recovered the last cycle because I was doing fucking forearm, like dumbbell curls. It's like, fuck. Like then that took away from other movements. And it's like, did you really need to be training your forearms? So I think it can quickly become overwhelming when you can get adding, and then you're like, right, I need to pull back. And sometimes that's where like a primer phase can come in, or an active recovery, you kind of wipe the slate clean. And you're like, right, now I can go again. But it's nice to like pull it back. Like we've both experienced with leg training, like just being like one of my leg days had 3 movements. It was leg curls, like Smith squats and belt squats. It's like, fuck, that was refreshing. And now I'm like, right, I think I can add a little bit more without it being too much. And so I've done that. But that's a very good point with the pulling in like the rear delts. Like it's like the rear delts, everything that applies to the front delts applies to the rear delts. So you don't probably you just do pressing and your front delts are fine. It's probably the same with the back, the rear delts, sorry. That's
a very good take. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that you can draw that comparison, and it's quite similar there in that fashion as well. Yeah, no, absolutely. And you brought up one thing, and that was also a note that I was taking, and that is leg sessions. Because what I started doing, it is already a longer time ago, is to do the calves and also ab work on upper body days. I do the calf work on push days and the ab work on pull days. This allows me to even have more of a better focus on then like intense leg training, so that I really can just like hammer it as hard as I can with as much volume as necessary and needed for then those movements. And I know from myself, and also with several athletes, doing several sets on something like hack squats, or even, I don't know, SLDLs. I don't think that many people need a lot of volume there, but let's say something like hack squats, that many people could probably recover from more, but it's just the psychological burden is so high. If you take a look at your spreadsheet, and in week number 1, it says 5 sets of hack squats. It's just, if that's the only thing that stands there, alongside with maybe 2 sets of leg extensions and 3 sets of leg curls, it's still like, holy shit, you know? Yeah. And just from the sheer amount of length or time that you're spending in the gym, it's probably less time than in an upper body session, but it feels just so much harder. And if you then would need to do an additional, I don't know, something like, for example, calf work, ab work, maybe something else, it would just be psychologically so demanding. And that's why I kind of distributed it to other days so that I really can just solely focus on the heavy tasks there.
That makes sense. It's actually something I did, but then this is the modification I made for this mesocycle is I moved so much to my upper body days in that I was doing chest and I was doing back and then I was doing abs, delts, calves, arms. And I was like, I left so little on my leg days. My leg days were taking less time than my upper body days. But that's, for that reason.
That's also what I meant, right? It can then be so overwhelming because you have so many things. And that is where then focusing more on the very important things is more important. So instead of having like 2 tricep movements in there, right, and then 2 delt movements, where it's like one delt is like lateral raise, and then the other one is a reverse flies or so. Throw out the things that you really don't need. Then break it down to the most kind of necessary. I wouldn't really say evil, but the things that really matter in that session that probably kind of cause 80 to 90% of the true stimulus, instead of them focusing on doing an additional stuff that is maybe not even adding a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And one thing I found, I don't know if you've ever found this with calf training. I don't know if we've spoken about it before, but I can't actually even do calves on like a leg day because I don't really want to do it first because I could see it impacting maybe a little bit other things. I've not actually done that before. Maybe it wouldn't. I could see for some people it could, especially because for like hamstring movements, the calf could be involved slightly and it could impact things. For like squat patterns, I'm not sure it would impact things much. But I was finding I couldn't do it afterwards anyway, because my quads were so pumped, I couldn't like extend. It would just impact my stability around the knee. So then I would fail at the quad because of the metabolites before my calf would freaking fail. So all of my calf work is off lower body days, but I have started moving bits of ab work to the end of leg sessions. But now for me, because I have made abs such a focus in my last off season, having them at the end of like being a lesser of a focus there is helpful. And I guess actually this draws the kind of question of, for me at least, it's like, do I need to consider going back to AM and PM sessions? Because that would remove some of these issues of that like short-term metabolite build up. But I did find that whilst you get into a routine and it becomes routine and it's fine, but after a while, it just becomes such a psychological burden again to know you have to go back and do more. And it's just like the amount of times I always would go back and do it. But if you don't want to be there, are you really going to commit to the quality of the work that you should be doing? No, it's just like going and doing a second job. You're like, I need to be here to earn some income, but I'm not going to give my best effort. I'm just going to go through the motions. And as much as I hope I never did that, and I would say I didn't feel like I did that, I've got to think that must have slightly come in. Like I wasn't as excited to go and train like I would be for my first session of the day, because it's just tricky doing that. And I know like you get into routine and you can do it, and maybe I'll get back there and it'll be fine. But I have enjoyed just like getting it done and dusted in one single workout.
I can definitely see that. And you always have to also consider, do you want to do this for 20 or 30 years like this? Probably not. It's a lot of time that you are investing with. Are there a lot of added benefits to it? Are they the time investment reward ratio is kind of very much skewed towards a lot of time and effort being invested for basically minimal returns?
Yeah, I think that is definitely a good question. And it's something I'll consider doing. I might just try it again at some point and just see if I enjoy it and how much of an added benefit I've got from it. But I don't want it to come as a consequence of just me trying to do more, because I think that's really what most people want to do AM and PM sessions, because they're like, I just want to do more because doing more is clearly better. And it's like, but it might not be what you really need to be doing here. And I look at some of the sessions like Mike, for example, splits his up, or Trevor Fulbright also splits his up. I look at some of their sessions and I'm like, I think Trevor works at a gym, Mike has a gym at home. I'm literally 5 minutes away from the gym. So but it's still going outside and locking up and whatever. There's a bit more commitment involved. But for a lot of people, there's even more time than that. And it's like, you look at their PM sessions, it's like 2 movements or something, maybe up to 5 sets of each. It's like, man, could you just, I don't know, rest a little bit in your session and go and do that at the end for most people, or not worry about doing that extra work because there's diminishing returns? I don't know. It's just me kind of thinking about it.
Oh. Steve, Trevor, you heard Steve. Steve called you out to being a fucking asshole. Anyway.
I love watching Trevor is like, he posts up, I don't know, from the looks of things, every single workout like he ever does. It's awesome to see. And he's always on the fucking Q&As doing shitloads. So shout out to Trevor. He's doing great work.
What I did recently is I'm trolling people who are doing those anonymous polls or kind of ask me.
Oh, have you?
Yeah.
I wondered if people would do that.
Yeah, I did it. Also with Brad Freeman as well. Like those Indian guys. Sir, please. Naked pictures, please, sir. Something like this. I had a lot of fun with it.
Did you troll me?
No, not yet.
Oh. So maybe you were the person who asked if we're going to have... just someone, what did they say? Just propose already. Something like that.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
I was like, no, it wasn't Charlotte, because she wouldn't have done that.
No, so also another exercise that he brought up is kind of the hip hinge movement on the V squat machine. So I just wanted to clarify why I'm doing this. For a long period of time, I did hyperextensions, and I love freaking hyperextensions. I just find them very efficient, and it just feels good. Has a very low systemic burden as well. From a joint and connective tissue perspective, they are just like smooth as well. But I did them for a very, very long time, and I felt like, okay, just changing things up slightly, moving over to that V squat machine, and I'm doing it more so to get stretch under load, instead of having like a heavy ass load on my back, because once again, I don't really want to have a massive systemic burden, because then I could also easily do something like dumbbell RDLs or SLDLs or something like this. The machine that I also have isn't the greatest, because with those V squat machines, sometimes you have the pads for the shoulder kind of 2 times, right? Where it's kind of one pad and then another pad on the outside, a little bit angled. This is something that I don't have at my gym. So I've only have like one pad for the shoulders. And if I'm then facing the machine, I actually have my face into the other pad. And if I then have to think about that someone with their sweaty hair is actually then there, and I'm now facing it and rubbing my nose and my mouth against it, it just makes me very much sick and uncomfortable. And that's why I'm trying then to actually turn down my face, have only my forehead against that, but which then causes my shoulders not to be on the pads anymore, at least not that much. So only stabilized and on that pad, very, very on the edge and the tip of my shoulders. And that doesn't really cause a lot of stability. And that's also the reason why I can't go very heavy. So yeah, my rationale behind it is just like for stretch under load, to really get that nasty kind of stretch sensation on them, the hamstrings. It's just a little bit of additional work there. But nothing that is too taxing. And so
it's quite literally why I'm doing the back extensions where they are. Like, it's the exact same rationale, which is funny because we both came to that without talking or like any conclusion there. And exactly why I'm doing back extensions versus like I don't want any axial loading, that sort of thing. Yeah. So that's really cool. And I wonder, is it a hammer strength machine?
Yes, it is.
Holy shit. I think we have the same one. Did you see the one in Yorkies that we have?
I can't really recall.
So it's exactly the same. You have to smush your head right into the thing. And the shoulder pads are so shallow that it's basically just on the tip of your shoulders, even with your head. Yeah, so I've tried maybe 4 or 5 times, like doing some sets on there with it, and I'm like, I just don't know if this will work. And so
I'm still not 100% convinced, to be honest. Every single time that I'm finishing a set, I'm just like, did it really feel great? I do feel like a proper stretch on my hamstrings, but I don't know. I'm not 100% convinced yet.
Yeah.
So yeah,
and that brings me to a thought. Was I tried out King's Gym on the weekend, which is in Mitcham in like a industrial estate.
Did you
And it's
train
actually-
with James Hollingshead? No, he was at the Arnold's this weekend.
Yes, he was. But
Yes.
also, I don't think he trains at that gym. There's 3 King's gyms. So I think people just think
Oh.
King's is just one branch.
Oh, yeah,
So that
I
might
wasn't
be why.
aware of that, to be honest.
Yeah, that's why you might have thought that gym was really like well kitted out. But I think the one he trains at is probably better kitted out than at least the branch I tried, which wasn't bad by any means. Like as far as like versus a commercial gym, definitely better. Whether or not it was better than Yorkie's, like I said to you, it won on some aspects and it lost on some aspects.
Yeah.
And so I'm considering but they're almost even on that front. And then it's an extra 15 minutes commute. Well, actually, no, it'd be an extra half an hour commute to my day. It's like, do I want to go there? I might consider it in the new year because I've bought a year at Yorkie's. So I might try, and they have like a monthly fee, so you can cancel at any time. So I might do like try a mesocycle or 2 there, see how I like it, because they had a good leg press. Then their hack squat is not as good. Their pendulum squat was better. Actually felt really nice. The Watson one, quite a few people have told me the Watson pendulum squat isn't great. And now I've experienced some other pendulum squats. I'm like, I can see why you think this one's not great. The angle is so harsh on the knees. It's very upright. Whereas the one I tried there, I was like, man, it felt really nice there. But then the Smith machine at Yorkie's is better. They don't have great cables, and their leg curl machine kind of sucked. The leg extension was kind of crappy. So I was like, oh. So anyway, it's frustrating. That was
absolutely.
my first world problems of trying to find like London's weird for gyms. Like there is no like one. Third Space might be the best gym, I think. That's the only one I know.
And you would
has
assume
shit
that
ups.
the bigger cities would have like a bunch of amazing gyms, at least like one that is just like hardcore bodybuilder gym that has all of the kind of well thought out equipment, that was kind of a collection of good equipment, such as I heard Dust Gym is doing.
Yeah.
And if they don't have a machine like this available, they are building their own stuff.
Losing weight fast while maintaining muscle mass. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? It isn't though. It's reality, and we know how to do it, and we will help you achieve this. The Minicut Movement is an 8-week fat loss program to make you lose a huge chunk of fat while maintaining muscle mass at the same time. We will support you from the beginning to the end so that you see the results you would like to and come out of it much stronger. You'll receive a fully automated spreadsheet that is based on your nutritional needs. You can choose between 6 different male and female training templates. Over 30 videos will guide you through each and every single step of the Minicut so that you're getting the most out of your journey and that you always know what to do. But the best thing is that you can start whenever you want. The Minicut Movement is open 24/7. So if you want to learn more or you're ready to sign up, hit the link in the description below. So let's revive stronger together.
Crazy. That's so cool.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? And I mean, I would do the same probably if I were an owner of a gym, because it would also be my playground, the passion that I have that I want to share with everyone else, and just like try my very best to collect the best machines there are.
It's funny. Probably the best in London Central, at least, is Muscleworks. Yeah, that we've been and filmed many vlogs at. It's pretty decent, but again, it's lacking in some places and what have you. It's not perfect by any means. Muscleworks in Orpington, I've heard, is very good, but it's hardly central. It's not central London at all. It's quite far out. But it's funny because I filmed one exercise and it was a row setup that Mike had because he doesn't have it anymore because he was like, that thing I didn't really like. So I sent it back and I was like, man, I can see why you own, like he wanted to own his own gym.
Yeah.
Because like if he has the money, he has the space, he has the love for it. Like, man, imagine being able to actually do that. We've talked about it and joked about it before where we'd have our own like Revive Stronger gym. We'd have all our favorite pieces of equipment. Oh man, that would be so amazing.
It would. Maybe it will come to fruition at some point when we are older and we are just like, yeah, come on, let's spend the money.
Yes.
I don't know.
And I can see if maybe I was single, I would move to somewhere just for a gym. I would consider it.
I was considering this as well when I was still single and was like, okay, the next chapter is nearly over here with evening school back then. What's next? Right. And I was even considering moving over to the US even.
Yeah. And I know it probably sounds a little bit contradictory because we've spoken, and I still agree with this, we've spoken many a times how those little things like it's not a game changer. And I still hold that. I still think someone like you look at Jeff Alberts, he had the most basic setup at home through just like barbell, his Smith machine, a bit of cables. Like you don't need a whole host of stuff. It's just bonus. It just is nice. And you can, what's it called? Jerry rig or whatever, MacGyver, various pieces of equipment to basically be just almost as good in many ways. So if those listening are like, oh man, like my gym's terrible compared to what you're talking about, it's probably not terrible. Like the longest time I put 10 pounds of muscle on my frame from 2017 to 2021, and that was all at the gym, like the most commercial gym you can possibly imagine. So, and actually part of that was lockdown too.
Like honestly, why are you getting a freaking expensive car? It's not because you really need that one car, because it has something that other cars aren't able to do, you know? It is more like out of maybe convenience, because it gives you something that the others don't. Maybe it's just kind of a feel, right? Maybe it's just kind of a convenience that, I don't know, some other cars don't, right? It's the same when it comes to also, I don't know, expensive clothing. Why are people attached to a certain brand and spend a lot of money on something like Louis Vuitton bag when it's just a fucking bag, you know? If you really just care about having a bag, then you're just going with, I don't know, one cheap ass bag from Decathlon or anything alike, you know? But there's sometimes more to it. There's a certain nostalgia, maybe sometimes, a feel to it. And I think it's kind of the same when it comes to a gym as well. It's not mandatory, it's not necessary, but if you have the chance, it would be fucking nice.
Yeah, I think about it similar to that, but I think about it sometimes with like tools. Like there's many tools you can get a job done with. You can have like really, really fancy tools and you might be slightly more efficient. It might be, I don't know, more fun. You can probably get the job done almost equally as well with many different tools. It just might take more time, thought, and effort with another set of tools. But yeah, those expensive brands. I will say it's funny because we talk about just random shit on here. I've recently experienced purchasing some more expensive clothing, not crazy expensive, and it was just like a standalone brand. But they had like jumpers would cost, I don't know, the most I'd spend on a jumper normally, or a sweatshirt, whatever you want to call it, would be like £20 or something. But they were like £40-50 in the sale. I was like, man, they look nice. I'm going to buy them. And I tried them and I was like, this is worth it. This is way better than my £20 one.
Buddy,
so
I hate to break it to you, but it's just due to inflation. You still bought the £20 clothing that was £20 like 3 years ago, but is now at the price of like 45, and you just think, oh right, it's now 45, and it's just amazing.
I placeboed myself.
Exactly.
That could be something to it too. Like you, I have found if I buy more expensive things, maybe I take care of them better, because I'm like, I shouldn't wear that item of clothing to the gym because it costs way too much to take to the gym. Yeah. I wear my cheap ass free shirts or whatever it is.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, there's definitely something to it. But I don't really like to. There are some gadgets and tools that are there to be used, and if they are too expensive, I'm not using them. You know, like for example, I had and owned motorbikes that were so fucking expensive that I didn't really ride them appropriately. Where it was just like, oh no, maybe it's going to rain, so no, I would rather leave it in the garage. And at some point I sold them because I needed something that is practical and actually then gets me from A to B, and where I'm not too afraid when it's raining to still drive it and all that kind of stuff. So sometimes going for the less expensive option is the way to go, because you're then too hesitant in actually using it. No,
I really agree with that. That's actually a really good reminder, because I was looking at what was I looking at? The listeners will know, you'll know the trainer probably, maybe you will. The Yeezys. Do you know the Yeezy trainers? Like they were a big thing a few years ago. They're less expensive now, but they're like hundreds of pounds. And so I was like, man, I really like the look of those shoes. Maybe I'll get some. And I was looking at reviews and like people were like, yeah, they're like most comfortable shoe I've ever owned, whatever. But now you bring up this point, I'm like, I think they'd be that type of shoe that I'd be like, it's just too expensive even to wear out. Whereas my Nike ones, much more comfortable than like, I don't know, unbranded, complete, like unknown £10 ones.
Yeah.
But they're not so expensive. I give a shit about wearing them out and about. So like I get
Absolutely.
really good use out of them. Like they're that sweet spot where
Absolutely.
a bit better than the really crappy stuff, but not so good that you just will never get any use from it.
Absolutely. I can definitely relate to that. Yeah, Steve, I had no other things on the notes here. One thing though, but we didn't really touch on it when it comes to hyperextensions. And you said like, oh, my quads were still all right for something like hyperextensions.
Yeah.
Have you felt that, and I would very much assume that I know the answer already, that when the leg days were too hefty on your quads, that you weren't capable of then doing hyperextensions at the end of a workout? Because when you're putting a lot of weight on then the quads and you have the pad there, and it just hurts and it's painful and it distracts from then feeding it where you are supposed to be feeding it, and that is mostly hamstrings and glutes.
Yeah, that's the concern I had with it, and that's why I've been doing leg curls first always, because my quads were getting so gnarly, like pumped and disrupted, that going and doing a leg curl wouldn't be worthwhile, especially a seated leg curl. I don't know what's worse, lying or seated, but for whatever reason, the hyperextension was okay week 1. Now, is it going to get to the point where maybe I need to go to the hammer strength V squat and just face it? Because then the quads are, they're not going to be under pain or pressure or anything. Yeah. Obviously, they're stabilizing the knee a little bit there, I guess, but I don't think it'll be such a bad impact. So,
one more thing, and that is now, and that can be the last point for today. On the seated leg curls, what I've found to be ultra helpful is to really, really press the pad down, like to an uncomfortable extent. So where it's like it sounds like weird. You're kind of pressing with your entire upper body, your legs downwards, so that it kind of snaps back up then, and you are in that ultra stable position where then the thighs and also your glutes kind of are so locked in that it's kind of as if you're driving a roller coaster, and you can't really, up until the point where they are then unlocking things again, you can't really move.
That's exactly how I like doing leg curls. Was like, I would, like, you can put it in like just normally, but I would be like, no, I need to push it down, so it's a bit uncomfortable, so I'm so stable through that joint that like there's nothing moving, and then pushing against it and pushing myself back into the seat for just like crazy stability. And that's why I moved away from doing the ones where I'd lean over the top and try and like get an extra stretch, because I found I didn't really get much more of a stretch from doing that, and it made me a little bit less stable in the lift. So I just found, man, I want to see a leg curl again. I'm so like, there's another gym around here, but it would cost like, just for a seated leg curl machine, it would be like another £40 a month to just have the membership.
I actually canceled my long-term membership on that one gym branch, and exactly, I kept it for a long time, that membership. I was just like thinking about it rationally, and didn't really make any kind of sense to keep that membership because the gym is far away. Sometimes I can't even be bothered driving there because it's that far away. And only maintaining or keeping that membership for like the hack squat, I thought like, man, this is fucking stupid. Especially because they increased their prices, and I was just like, no. Nostalgia, I know, because I was having that membership since like, I don't even know.
Is it the one I went with you two?
No. But it is that gym branch. But it was a different location where the hack squat was. But yes, it is that one. And I was just like, man, I had it for such a long time. But the good thing is that my membership is still valid up until the point of like next year sometime, even though that I've cancelled it because of the COVID policy that they had. During the time of the lockdown, if you didn't cancel your membership, you will actually have the same amount then being put towards the end of your membership. So I can continue up for like, I don't know, 8 or 9 months now.
So they continue to charge you throughout the lockdown?
Exactly.
Got you. Yeah, the gym froze ours like immediately. So that makes sense. That's quite a nice little bonus. But yeah, for one machine, it's kind of like, and especially for me, I would I wouldn't want to do like a whole session probably in that gym. I just want to go there for just like, I'll walk to that gym, do leg curls, and then just walk to the other gym.
Yeah,
they are actually very
really
close, but it doesn't make sense.
No.
They're in like 2-minute walk of one another, but
no. Hey man, rather use that money to buy some fancy clothing, I would say.
yeah, from the sound. Invest in these shoes that I'll never wear. Oh dear.
Yeah.
Anything else? We haven't got long, but anything nutritionally on your front changed?
I'm eating more oats.
More oats, okay.
Yeah.
I just removed oats.
I'm having a bowl of oats each and every single day right now, just because I freaking like it.
Is it because it got cold?
No.
Like you're having a hot... Okay.
No, it's just more like I'm at a point where so my nutrition and my nutritional habits and the way that I eat has changed so drastically over the past year, Steve. It's unbelievable. I can't really even recognize my own behaviors around this. And I said it already a couple of months back that I'm so happy with the way that I'm eating right now. And even further now, it's to the point where I'm saying like, man, this is the best that I've ever eaten in my entire life, with the awareness, with how I go about eating, how I hate the term, right? But how intuitive I can be. And who was it? I think, was it Evan Gottby? I think was who posted a comment on one of my Instagram posts, who then said something about intuitive eating. Oh no, I think it was Paul Canyu, who said like, okay, intuitive eating is more like a skill that takes years to be developed, and also for some people never really make it there. And for me personally, I got to the point where I can eat quite intuitively because I have such good fundamental understanding of what it is that I need to consume, and also I'm very much not struggling with hunger and food size anymore.
That's good.
I could, if I wanted to, eat candy if I want to, and stop whenever I want to, and even incorporate that into my daily meals without any kind of issues. And also with oats, it's so funny because I think that oats are being put on a pedestal in the lifting community. I don't know what it is, but people glorify oats. Of course, oats are amazing. You can do a lot with oats. But it's not that you need to have oats. And I have sometimes the feeling that people think, all right, I'm now lifting, so the one thing that I need to eat is oats. And for so many people, it doesn't really work out. Where it's like in a cutting phase, it is not satiating enough. It may be in the initial moment, but the size and the volume isn't really that big unless you're kind of modifying it. Exactly. And because of that, so many people are struggling in a cutting phase with oats because it just leaves them hungry. And in a gaining phase, it leaves so many people bloated because it's such a complex carbohydrate that, I don't know, they're just ending up bloated. So for the vast majority of people, I wouldn't even recommend eating oats.
I have like a sweet spot for oats. When I'm first massing, they're great. And then I'm at the point where I've traded them out for frosted shredded wheat because it's just easier to eat, and I'm like, it's still a complex carbohydrate, but it's a bit tastier and easier to get in. And then I think I kept oats throughout almost the majority of my I even had them on like show day. I would have oats, so I kept oats in for a long time. But I think for me, oats I just really enjoy them, like the texture, everything during a cut phase.
I very much enjoy the texture, especially when you found a way that you just like and enjoy.
Yeah.
And you have to kind of tinker around and experiment a little bit up until the point where you actually then have kind of the recipe for you. Right? And then you can actually move over to the next step and maybe modify them even further. So, but once again, I just found, and I don't know whether this is also something that you have found with a lot of your athletes, but so many people actually have oats in their diet and are either reporting issues in a cutting phase with hunger, or in a gaining phase, issues with bloating. And whenever I then ask for something like MyFitnessPal or so, I see oats, I take them out, and most of the time things are better.
I haven't actually experienced that, but that's interesting. Maybe I will notice it now when I'm looking through things and seeing. The other one I was going to bring up quickly is, what's it called? Cream of rice. Have you ever had cream of rice?
No, I'm not as blessed as you are, Steve. I think cream of rice is only reserved for the blessed people who have a caloric intake of 4,000 plus calories.
This is the thing that I think is now like also on a pedestal. It's like, you got to have cream of rice post-workout, surely. And it's like, I just eat cereal. Like, I'm not going down cream of rice. I have tried the cream of rice, but yeah, it's one of those foods. I think a lot of people have that again inappropriately, and they're then really hungry because that is not like it's not filling at all like oats can be. So yeah,
that's why I was actually then referring to kind of it is only reserved for people with a very high caloric intake, because they can actually fit it in, and if they don't want to go down that route of like junk food or so, I think it's a very good option then.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really see much difference between having a cereal versus having a cream, like some
absolutely.
processed like rice. It's like some what's it called, Rice Krispies versus like actually Rice Krispies are probably fortified.
Especially when you have such a high caloric intake. I don't really think that you need to really worry about clean food or your mineral and vitamin intake, because I mean, when you're eating that much food, chances are you're absolutely covered. And then you can actually then just allow for a lot of junk food without any kind of detrimental outcomes.
It's just like the pure quantity just makes up for the potential lack of quality, at least. Cool. No, that's good to hear. I'm glad things are working well on your end with everything, really, for nutrition, training. It's all going smooth. And
same. I can say the same thing about you, Steve. I'm very, very happy to hear that, especially the first week now is interesting and also hopefully fruitful with making that transition. And I'm very much looking forward to then Dust Gym.
Yeah, I'm very looking forward to that. If anyone has recommendations for Vienna, definitely let us know in the comments. And I appreciate, like last time you said you appreciated all the comments. We got a lot of comments again, people saying they're tuning in still, which is nice, even though the views have gone down, but the loyal listeners are still here, I hope.
I would very much assume that YouTube changed the algorithm because they've introduced YouTube Shorts, so the shorter formats. And this is also something that Instagram is right now pushing, because everyone wants to have a piece of the pie of TikTok. And they are all changing kind of their algorithms. So guys, please leave a little bit of love here, because we have once again seen that the view count was coming down, probably because of a change of algorithm and what it is that YouTube is rewarding. And we want to, of course, continue what it is that we're doing here. And this is mostly just possible when you are supporting us. I know this sounds desperate. Maybe it is also a little bit desperate. I don't know. But every kind of support, every kind of comment, like, subscribe is very much appreciated. And please do it.
Please, we're begging. If you've listened this far and you've heard Pascal cry, you've got to leave a comment now. If you don't do it, bad things will happen.
Yeah. That's the actual reason why I switched over to Oats now, because they are just like cheap and I have no money anymore.
They are cheap.
Please. You can't accept that I'm now just living on oats. Please. It's up to you.
Guys, we'll talk to you soon.
Cheers.
If we're still around. So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal Steve. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people, but each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics. Discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries.
Our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library.
The exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy, we're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them.
We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets.
I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge. And I'd love you to be part of it.
You will get so much out of that.
I'll see you inside.